we're going to look at the for loop. We're going to learn when to use a for loop, how to use a for loop, an example program, and then a nested loop. Here is an example of what we're going to make. It's going to be some LEDs moving left to right across our screen. And right now, you could probably think of one way to do that. A way that I have right here, where I have turned on an LED, then a different one, and a different one, and a different one, and yeah, that looks about right. But what if I want to have this LED move across, and then at the end, move down the next row, and the next row, and the next row? That is 25 blocks. That is a lot. Let's take a moment and look at another way that we could do it. Here we have our pseudocode. If I want to turn an LED on and then have it turn off and move one to the right, it might look something like this. Start off with turning on our 0, 0 LED. That is the top left LED. Wait a moment. Turn that LED off. Wait a moment. Turn on the next LED to the right. On. Pause. Turn it off. That is a lot. But what we can look at here is that there is only one thing that changes, one number that changes through all of our pseudocode, and that is the X. The X goes from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. That makes us a perfect candidate for a for loop. Let's get rid of this. We're going to go over to loops and we're going to drag out a for loop. And I'm going to drop that in forever. And this looks a little different than the repeat blocks that we've used before. And there's a variable in here, and this variable could be anything. But what this does is this creates a variable starting at 0, and every time it runs through the program, it adds 1 to it. And it will repeat that until it gets to the second number, in this case, 4. I'm going to go to LEDs and pull out a plot. Then I'm going to go to LEDs and pull out an unplot. And basically, I'm going to pull out 2 pauses. All right. Thinking back to our pseudocode, the only thing that changed was our X. We have a variable we can insert there. So if I go and grab this variable and put it into the X's, we can see that the X moves across. Let's go slow motion and talk about what's happening here. All right, the for loop starts. X or index starts at 0, so 0, plot, 0, unplot. Goes back to the top. Index is now 1, plot at 1, 0, unplot at 1, 0. Go back around. And this repeats 4 times inside of this loop before popping to the end and restarting because it's still in a forever loop. Now there's 5 blocks of code here, and there was 5 blocks of code when I used only the basic show LEDs. But the power of a for loop is that we can put them inside of each other. We can nest them. And if we nest them, then we can do some really neat things. I'm going to pull out another for loop and put it on the outside of the inside for loop. Now we have, I'm going to give us a different variable. So if that's index, I'm going to do index y. That's going to help me remember that this is a different index. And I would like this to instead increment our y's. So I'm going to pull out index y, index y. All right, before I hit play, let's think about what's going to happen. The loop starts. Index y is 0, so these both have a 0 in them. We go here. Index is 0. These both have 0. It's going to turn on and off the LED here. It's not going to leave this loop yet because its index has not reached 4. So going to come back up. Index will now be 2. Index y is still 0. 1 and a 0. 1 and a 0. It's going to turn this one on and off. It's not done leaving the loop because it's not reached 4. Index is now a 2, 2, 0, 2, 0. This LED. 3, 0, 4, 0. Once it's reached 4, it pops out and it goes back to this outside loop. This outside loop is going to increment by 1. Index y is now a 1. And the inside one is reset to 0 because it's brand new again. Because remember, from 0. So at 0, 1, this is moved down. And it should go across. Let's see if that worked. And just like that, with only 6 blocks, we are able to light every LED in a fun and interesting pattern. That is the power of a for loop. Quick reminder, anytime you want to use a for loop is a good time when something is going to increment by 1 and needs to repeat a certain number of times. These outside conditions of how many times it could repeat could also be a variable. That is the for loop.